Portions of this show are recorded. Strap in and be prepared.
You just heard Baby J about 3 minutes give his entire A to Z on what was going on. I didn't interrupt you.
I don't even I got to everything, honestly.
No, you didn't get to everything.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, Melissa Lombardi, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I can see Dan Lanning sitting in his office, rubbing his hands together and saying, yeah, bring it on. You're just giving me juice.
I think you could be the type of team that has guys that excel in certain things. You don't need somebody that's great at everything. You need to be able to put guys in position where they're going to succeed.
And some smiles.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing working? No, that's why you got to do this. You got to go.
Hello?
Hello? Testing, testing,
it's like the little
testing.
girl in Nemo where she's tapping on the glass.
Fishy! Fishy, wake up, Fishy!
It's Danny Havel.
We have to be more specific. We have a lot of pickle things going on,
know.
apparently.
Justin Grossweiner.
It's a Schwar bomb. That's a man right there hitting that ball.
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Danny's taking a day off for load management. Here's Justin.
Hello, neighbors. High atop the Delta Triad in the Crystal Palace that is the Bigfoot Beverages Studios. Welcome to the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk, the Danny and Justin radio program. Special one today. I'm Justin Grossweiner, and joining me for the first time on the program is Knight Jarecki. He's the Director of Communications with the Springfield Drifters Baseball Club and a former colleague of mine at the University of Oregon, where we spent a couple of years covering the Ducks together. So, Knight, great to have you on here. I'm excited to have an on-air reunion.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this reunion. I feel a little bit underwhelmed, or I guess I feel like I'm out of place, because I'm listening to that intro, and you guys are talking about having Mike Parker on. You guys got Josh Pate, and here I am, just Knight Jarecki with the Springfield Drifters. Thanks for having me on. And honestly, it's been how many years? 3 years?
2022 is when I graduated.
Gosh,
so
yeah, 3 years
then.
since we've been on a radio show together.
Yeah, it has
Crazy.
been. Don't sell yourself short, though, Knight. It's great to have you on here. You've got some great insights on all the teams that you cover, and it's going to be great to have you as an addition to our program.
Appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to talking ball.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a fun show today. We've got Ryan Kartje of the LA Times joining us to talk about the big game this Saturday. USC traveling to town to take on the Ducks in a top 15 matchup. We're going to talk to him pretty quickly about 2:10. Dan Lanning spoke today at media. We'll see what he had to say about the matchup against USC, as well as some other things going on. That's going to be the third segment. Blazers lost last night to the Suns. We'll do a little recap of that and talk about the matchup tonight against the Bulls. And if we have some time, we'll go over the NFL slate and whatever else we can get to. So, Knight, did want to talk to you about the Drifters. Obviously, you're the Director of Communications there. So, just how exciting is it for you to be in that position now?
Oh, I mean, I'm really excited to be in my position now. I started as an intern with the Drifters back in 2022. Was the first broadcaster for the Springfield Drifters, an intern that season, and then have continued to come back to Springfield each summer, broadcast games there, and then just had the opportunity to come aboard full-time in September, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been great. I think you can agree, like, when you go to school at the University of Oregon, like, you're kind of in the U of O community, but then once you leave, like, you're not as much in the U of O community, and you're more in, like, the Eugene-Springfield community.
Absolutely.
And so it's been a really cool experience getting to learn more about the Eugene-Springfield community and get to connect with local business owners and talk to people that live here full-time rather than just the students and people around the athletic department at the University of Oregon.
And you guys have a lot going on, so tell me about the things you've got going on right now.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We just hired a brand new general manager, Jake Willard. He's coming over from Tracktown, USA. He spent the last 6 years there with that organization. We're really excited to have him join our club. It's a front office staff of 3 people, but, we're small but mighty.
Right.
Year 5 coming up, and so we're really looking forward to having Jake aboard to help facilitate some more community partnerships, get out into the community more. Recently, we just had a opportunity to go to Springfield High School, donate $2,500 worth of food to their food pantry. They were running a little bit low, and so it was great to get out there and kind of support them in a tough time. And also, we got some youth camps going on right now. So coming up on Black Friday, our camps page on driftersbaseball.com. Coming up on the Black Friday, it's going to be a special youth camp, $75. It's going to be capped at 40 registrants. So I already saw earlier today, a few kids have already signed up. So definitely go to our website if you are interested. It's for kids 7 to 18. It's going to be a baseball skills camp. There's going to be games going on. There's going to be free popcorn, and then there's going to be a baseball movie at the end with our coaches, which is really exciting for them. And then every Sunday up until December 21st, so I think 5 more Sundays, we got more youth hitting camps happening. It's at Hamlin Sports Complex. Again, it's for kids 7 to 18. There's 2 sessions. 7 to 11-year-olds, they're in the first session. That's from 4 to 5:15, and then kids 12 to 18, that's going to be from 5:30 to 6:15, and that's just another opportunity for kids in the community that are into baseball to get out there and get some instruction from our coaches. Dean Stiles, who was formerly a volunteer assistant coach at the University of Oregon, he worked in the Dodgers organization.
Yep, I think we've had him on, yeah.
Yeah, really, really great coach. Jeff Lyle also had worked in minor league baseball for a long time. He's our head coach as well, and so they've been doing a great job, running those camps and just continuing to grow the sport of baseball in this community, which I think is really, really awesome. And so looking forward to a lot of fun things ahead.
Absolutely, and we're still I think 200 days. I think you got a countdown on your website about how far away from the season.
I can try to pull it up real quick.
I think it's 190 something days.
It's something like that. 194
days.
To be exact.
Not that
20
you're
hours,
track.
28 minutes, and 40 seconds from now. We are going to have our first pitch at Hamlin Sports Complex. Our season opens on May 29th. Home opener is June 2nd. Our schedule is now live on our website. Again, that is driftersbaseball.com. So the full schedule is released. Got 29 home games. Looking like we might get a 30th game. Stay tuned for that. Follow us on social media.
And then you get to go to maybe Canada?
Yeah.
I know you're excited about that.
I am, yes. We're going to Victoria this year. Actually, twice, kind of. So we are playing a 3-game series in Victoria. I've never been to Victoria, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Very cool.
I've been to Vancouver and British Columbia. I've gotten to explore that area. 2 summers ago, we got to go to Edmonton. That was a heck of an experience.
And what part of Canada are you from? Canada, actually, officially?
I mean, my mom's from Ontario.
From Canada. Okay.
Yeah, so my mom's from Ontario. Most of my family's back there, and so I go back quite frequently. But that's all Eastern Canada, like out in Ontario. And so I've been out there. Now, with the Drifters, I've actually gotten to explore Western Canada a little bit. Like I said, so 2 years ago, we got to go to Edmonton in Alberta, and that was a crazy, crazy awesome experience. Drove up there, drove through the Canadian Rockies, and loved Alberta and British Columbia so much that I wanted to go back. And so right around Labor Day, I went up for the CFL's Labor Day Classic. That's like their big, Thanksgiving type of weekend in the CFL for like Canadian football.
Okay.
So went up there, spent some time up there, but I've never been to Vancouver Island where Victoria is. So the 3 games there, and then also the All-Star game this year is in Victoria too, which is pretty exciting as well. So some of our players, they'll get a second opportunity to go to Victoria, which is always really exciting. Last year it was in Bellingham. To me, I think it's probably a cooler experience for our players to get to go to Victoria. And I think that's what makes the West Coast League so special is that not only do you have teams all throughout Oregon and Washington, but you also have those teams in British Columbia and Alberta. So you're helping grow the sport not only in the Pacific Northwest, but also across the border in Canada as well.
And we're going to have to get to a break here to get to Ryan Kartje in a second, but just wanted to ask you one more thing. We had a lot of local talent from the kind of Oregon-ish area last year on the Drifters. Expecting the same this year?
Yeah, definitely. I've just looked at some of the contracts that we've sent out. It looks like we're going to bring back a couple of local players. I think right now about 5 players are scheduled to come back. But last year, really remarkable season for a couple of local guys. Nolan Miller, who's from Sheldon High School. He had a phenomenal season for us. I think, like, looking back at the stats the other day, I think he broke, like, 5 or 6 records in team history last year, which was really cool. And then you also had Cooper Mullins. He's from Marist High School.
Of course.
He was a WCL All-Star last season. And he also, like, that was his 3rd season with the Springfield Drifters. And he just, like, he also broke, like, a lot of records last year. Most games played in a single season. Walks were up there for him as well. He had a phenomenal year. And so it was cool to see like the local guys produce. And then, we also had Blake Stavros, who's from Willamette High School. He was on the team last year. He was another returner to the Springfield Drifters. One of our interns, he played at Willamette High School, went to Linfield, and then he was like working for the Drifters in a non-league game. We got him out there for an inning. So that was kind of pretty fun. Jarrett Allen, shout out him. But yeah, no, it's cool to see the local guys, and I think that's what's cool about the Drifters is not only do you have local guys, but you guys have players from all around the country coming to Springfield, and so it's cool for those local guys to get to take some of those foreign guys around Lane County and all around Oregon, really, to be honest.
No, it's exciting, and it's a great product on the field as well, which I'm sure you can attest to. So we'll look forward to some Springfield Drifters baseball here in about 200 days.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well, that's our conversation about Drifters baseball for now. We'll definitely get to some in the future, but we'll start our conversation about Oregon and USC after this break. You're listening to the Danny and Justin radio program. Night Jarecki with me today. Ryan Kartje of the LA Times is going to be with us after this break, right here on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. Welcome back to the Bigfoot Beverages Studios for the Danny and Justin radio program right here on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. I'm Justin Grossweiner. Night Jarecki in with me for Danny. We'll get some audio from Dan Lanning in the next segment as the Ducks prepare to take on the Trojans this Saturday in a top 10-15 matchup with the playoffs on the line. But first, we'll head over to the Oregon Man Clinics hotline to bring in our next guest. He is the USC beat writer for the Los Angeles Times and the Times of Troy newsletter. It's Ryan Kartje. Ryan, thanks for being here today and fitting into your schedule. I know with the crossover season, things get crazy for us all in sports media, so thank you for taking a little bit of your time today to give us your insights on this big match against the Ducks this weekend. Absolutely. Happy to be here. So I'm just curious, with this new sort of Big Ten situation we've got going on, no more Pac-12. This two teams, USC and Oregon, obviously been fighting not just on the field, but kind of off the field for recruiting as well. I'm just curious, do you think this is one of the bigger rivalries right now? See, obviously UCLA is sort of the big rival there, from what I understand. But right now, it just feels like Oregon and USC, I mean, these two teams, like they don't like each other.
Yeah, it's funny. I think if you just count like nastiness between two programs, then it might rank number one, honestly, at this point for USC. And I think, like, probably Notre Dame, would certainly push it in that regard. But, UCLA hasn't really, put up a ton of a fight over the course of the last, 10 or so years. So yeah, I think Oregon has really kind of emerged into that spot. And I think part of that is because Oregon has had, a lot of success, and it's certainly upset some people at USC who probably haven't liked that a lot of Southern California recruits have gone up there.
Yeah, I know that this is going to be a big weekend for recruits with USC to come into town this weekend. So certainly a lot on and off the field between these two teams. But for this USC program, it hasn't been the smoothest tenure for Lincoln Riley in LA. 11-3 his first season with Caleb Williams. Disappointing drop-off in year 2 in 2023. 8-5 last year, which definitely isn't up to the standard. But now this team is 8-2. They're back to playing big games in November. What were the expectations for this season for this team, and how close have they been to that standard?
I would say that most, logical, rational USC fans probably expected something like what we've seen right now. And I think, maybe they would contend that the team has exceeded some expectations. I think, winning 9 games, if you would have told any of those fans at the beginning of the season that's what they were getting out of this regular season, I think they would have been, pretty pleased with that. Just some measured progress and at least being in the conversation for the playoffs, because this was a team that has really struggled these last 2 years, and it didn't seem like things were heading in the right direction for a minute. But, I think we can say pretty definitively already that, it looks like things are heading in the right direction right now. But a game like this can be, a major accelerant in that. And I think, the opportunity for Lincoln Riley in this game is, I would argue, even bigger than it was when they were 1 win away from the playoffs, in 2022, just because of all of the heat he's been under over the course of the last 2 years. This would kind of close the door on that, because I think we could argue that USC would probably make the playoff, assuming it were to beat Oregon this weekend. So a lot's on the line for USC in terms of their trajectory this weekend. But I also think, certainly some USC fans have guarded themselves with this idea that, if we lose to Oregon, it's still a successful season no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, thanks again for joining us here today. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Jaden Mayava. Obviously, year 2 for him, kind of came into the scene a little bit at the end of last season. Just how has he developed as a passer this season, and what makes him so different this season compared to last year?
he really has a much better grasp on the offense, and I think, and I would argue just the position in general this year. He's always had the natural arm talent. You could see that from day one of practice that he was with USC, but he made a lot of mistakes last year, and he wasn't always that sharp. And I think we've seen that improve significantly this year. Everything is a little bit better mechanically. He has been a lot more careful in terms of, throwing the ball down the field. Now, he's still been aggressive, but, he was throwing the ball down the field into traffic like at an insane clip last year. It's a wonder he didn't throw more interceptions than he did. But he's cut down significantly on those turnovers, and that's made a huge difference. I mean, the offense has been a lot more effective and efficient just because of those improvements. And I think, it certainly helped him that he has one of the best receiving cores, or especially receiving duos in America, and Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane. And that has been a huge addition this year, that more so than I can remember since I've been covering USC football. So it's certainly made Maihava look good, even in moments where maybe he would have made a mistake otherwise.
And in terms of the offensive split, it's almost 300 passing yards a game, but also almost 200 rushing yards a game as well. Waymon Jordan, King Miller, and Eli Sanders have been seeming to form a pretty dynamic rushing trio. Just how much has that commitment to the run changed the dynamic of this offense in this program?
Yeah, this is definitely the most talented and deep running back core that Lincoln Riley has had at USC, and it's kind of a wonder that it's worked out. At the beginning of the season, Waymon Jordan and Eli Sanders were sharing carries. Waymon was kind of the lead back. Both of them get injured against Michigan in the same exact half, and suddenly King Miller is thrust into that position. He's a walk-on. Certainly had never had much extended run, but had impressed, in the summer and in the fall, and had kind of earned some opportunity, and has since then been very good. I mean, they haven't really taken a step back in the last, 4 or 5 games since he's been the lead back. So, they're a lot more thin at that position. And I think if something were to happen to King Miller, this is suddenly a very volatile situation, and USC's relying on the pass too much, and that's when when Lincoln Riley becomes one-dimensional. That's often been when his play calling goes awry. So King Miller is going to be a huge part of this game on Saturday, and I think if Oregon is able to disrupt that, then USC is going to have to put everything on Jaden Maihava, and when they've had to do that, especially on the road, the results really haven't been what they hoped for yet.
You mentioned the receiving corps and how talented they've been this season. I've seen before you've described Makai Lemon as a cheat code. What exactly does that mean, and what should Oregon fans know about him in the wide receiving corps?
Yeah, the one thing about Makai Lemon is he's just, he's got this insane focus. He really is kind of just he already feels like an NFL veteran as kind of a 21-year-old. But that's kind of lent itself to this amazing technical efficiency, I think, especially when you're talking about just manipulating zone coverage and getting open or getting separation on man coverage. There really isn't a coverage that can handle Makai Lemon. And he also just pretty much catches everything that's sort of thrown in his direction. It doesn't really matter if he's leaping into traffic or, if he has to dive between, two defenders. It has been, there are lots of examples this year in which Makai Lemon has kind of shown that, I certainly think he is a first round talent coming up in this draft. And the scary thing about USC's offense is that, not only do you have to worry about him, but if you double him, Jacoby Lane is, 6'4", 6'5", has some of the best catching traffic skills that I've seen of a receiver, in my time covering college football. So he's a little bit more volatile than Makai Lemon is, but the two of them together as a duo, especially now that Jacoby Lane is completely healthy, it's really dangerous. And that is, I can envision the way USC would win this game would be, several huge plays down the field to both of them. I think that's kind of where it starts.
Do you think this is going to be the kind of game, as Ryan Kartje with us from the Los Angeles Times with us talking about Oregon and USC, do you think this is the kind of game that USC wants to turn into a shootout?
I think that would favor USC more than a game focused on the ground. I think that's, if I'm Oregon, I would run the ball 50 times because that's been USC's biggest vulnerability all season, and especially on the road. It's been a huge problem. When they went to Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price combined for over 300 yards against them, and it was a very rough day for USC's run defense. And our Oregon has a better rushing attack than Notre Dame, so I really do think that's a significant advantage in this game. Now, if USC is able to get Oregon's offense off the field and control the game with the run itself, I think that would, go a long way. But I think, Oregon is, on the whole, I think a better team than USC, but USC's big playability is something that could give it an advantage kind of in the margins. And this game is close enough, at least, that it could be one in the margins.
Ryan, I was really curious, looking at this matchup. I remember the game a couple of years ago, and there was certainly a lot of pressure on USC's defense in that game at Autzen Stadium. But looking at this matchup, do you feel like there's still that same pressure on the USC defense, or do you feel like there's more pressure on the offense to try to keep up with the explosiveness of Oregon?
I would say there's probably more pressure on the defense, if only just knowing how good Oregon or how strong Oregon is on the ground, and that just being so very clearly USC's biggest problem. And I think, the pass defense, while they haven't really faced that many, big-time quarterbacks, certainly not one to the caliber of Dante Moore in a while. They have looked better, but the run defense, again, has just been a huge problem. Now, the one thing that's interesting is the last 3 weeks, USC's defense has looked significantly better after halftime. They basically have gone from being, an abomination in the first half to, a pretty strong Big Ten defense in the second. So if they're able to do that through a whole game, then maybe it's a different story. But we just haven't seen that yet, and we certainly haven't seen it on the road. Lincoln Riley hasn't beaten a top 10 team on the road since he's been USC's coach. So there's just a lot of factors kind of playing against USC in that regard. But certainly, the defense is the biggest vulnerability. And I think USC's offense pretty much, even on days where it doesn't look at its best, you look up and it still has 350 yards. And you're like, oh, where did that come from?
Ryan, I know you got to get out of here pretty soon, but I just want to ask you one more quick question. You mentioned the home road splits. What do you think the difference has been there? Because it's been pretty stark, the difference between the team and how productive they've been on the home versus on the road.
Yeah, I think ultimately that just comes down to culture and coaching. I think that's probably the biggest and fairest indictment of Lincoln Riley so far, is that, the team just hasn't had it on the road. And, they've lost games, especially last year, to teams they certainly should not have lost to on the road. Minnesota, Maryland, teams that had significantly inferior talent. So now we've seen, we saw them win at Nebraska, which I think was a big win. And I think just confidence-wise, people at USC would argue that that was an important step for them. But, Nebraska is not Oregon.
Right.
And I think the stakes of this game, the weight of all of the things that are looming over this, that's a significantly different challenge, and it's one we haven't seen them, conquer yet. So I think it's a huge moment for USC for sure, and I think the fact that it's against Oregon, your point earlier, a team that certainly there hasn't been any love lost lately.
Nope.
I think it just kind of adds to the whole mystique of the game.
Yeah, certainly the Lincoln Riley story has been one that's been fascinating, not just to those of us here in Eugene, but I think to everybody around the country. We're really looking forward to this game, Ryan. Glad that you're going to be here for this one. Thank you for fitting us into your schedule. It's been great talking to you about this game, and we'll look forward to all your coverage this week. Good luck going forward.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That was Ryan Kartje of the Los Angeles Times with us talking about Oregon and USC. So we'll take our last break here on the Danny and Justin radio program. It should be great talking about this game. And Danny, Knight and I should say. I messed up names before on this front. The first day.
I'm trying my best to be Danny.
I called Danny Bryan the first show, first thing. So it's not the first time I've called somebody the wrong name. But Knight and I, we're going to talk about the CFP rankings. And Dane Lanning had some audio from earlier today. So we'll talk about the CFP rankings and some of the projected matchups. We'll also, if we have some time, talk about the Blazers and maybe some NFL. So much more ahead. We'll keep it here on Danny and Justin. It's Fox Sports Eugene, Fox Sports Newport. Last segment of the fastest 60 minutes here on the Danny and Justin radio program. We just had Ryan Kartje on from the LA Times with us to talk Oregon USC this Saturday. And if you missed that, follow us on all the major podcast programs. You can do whichever you want. Just follow Danny and Justin, and you'll find us, or the fastest 60 minutes. That'll also work as well. So got a little bit more from you on Oregon football, as we heard from Dan Lanning earlier. And so after that, we'll do some college football rankings talk and some Blazers and maybe some NFL. So earlier in the week, or earlier in today, I should say, Dan Lanning talked about this matchup and just about the outside noise and everything going on.
Yeah, you can't spend too much time on it. You got to worry about the guys that want to be here. Ultimately, you always hope there's a conversation. I'm certain we have a good team. So what's that mean? That means people are probably reaching out to our players. We've been able to retain great players here for a long time. We've done a really good job of that, and I think that starts with guys being open and honest. There's going to be communication, and sometimes it's best for somebody to be somewhere else. But we're trying to do something special here, and it means being focused on where you're at, right now. And the reality is the portal opens in January. It doesn't open now. You got time to evaluate, those options for you, and each person has to evaluate those options for themselves. I love the team we have, love the players. Everybody has a special role here for us. Even if you're not necessarily out there on the field for us every single down, that's part of it, right? But it's also part of what's going on in college football, and the teams that manage that the best and handle that the best are going to be the teams that have been successful. And we've had a lot of success with how we've managed that here in the past. Hopefully, like I said, the one thing you want the opportunity to have conversation with guys before that becomes something you're not aware of.
We obviously had a situation earlier in the year with a couple players leaving, one of which may or may not have had a conversation with Dan Lanning before they left. But I think that's, to me, tonight, what have been one of the most impressive things about this Oregon team is obviously the college football calendar is so messed up with all this stuff going on when teams are going toward their playoff race and kind of everything's coming down to their line in the conference. But Oregon's been able to keep almost everybody.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the culture, right? People are bought into the culture here at Oregon. People are bought into what Dan Lanning is selling. And I think that people realize that Oregon is a special place. It is a very unique place. You have all the nice facilities, but you also have a coaching staff and support staff that really cares about these players. And so I think they do a really good job just retaining players and just kind of understanding that, if you're going to be an Oregon Duck, you're going to have to compete. It's not going to be easy. Dan Lanning, he has the saying, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And, that constantly puts pressure on the older players to perform during practice or during the week, even during game days. Like, if you're not performing during a game, Dan Lanning's not afraid to pull you from a game and put somebody else in your position. And so I think it just kind of creates this very competitive culture at Oregon. And I think that really creates an environment where guys want to be bought in and continue to compete. Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of these athletes are competitors. Sure, they want to get on the field and sure, they want to have their moments, but to excel at a high level, you're going to have to compete. Right. And I think Dan Lanning does a great job with that.
And something I was talking to Max Torres from Scoop Duck on 3 last week, and we do a segment each week on the Jared's Home Improvement Game Day show. And one thing that he really made sure to kind of emphasize to me was that, when it comes down to it, these players are coming to go to the NFL. Yes, they want to be successful in college, and they want to win a national championship, and that all sounds great. And like you said, they're all competitors. But when it comes down to it, they want to get to the NFL. And I think these players know if you go to the Ducks, got a good shot.
Yeah, especially quarterbacks. If you think about the recent success for quarterbacks, but Oregon under Dan Lanning has continued to pump out NFL caliber players, and you're seeing it right now with Bo Nix succeeding on Sundays, Troy Franklin as well, Tez Johnson's having some good moments.
I can't believe he
season.
what did he go, 4th, 5th round?
I think he was like seventh round, 6th round.
I can't
It was like
believe it.
late. Yeah, it's all
Don't
the
even get me
size.
started about the raw athletic score, which people were killing him on, and the testing. Oh my god, it was so stupid.
Well, the thing is that like for him, he didn't run a fast 40 time.
No, he didn't.
He like ran like a 4.56 or something. Which honestly, like if you watch the game, like
exactly
the game speed, he is faster than anybody out there. So there is the NFL success that you're starting to see right now with Dan Lanning and the Ducks, and so. And you talk about these players wanting to make it to the NFL. Like a lot of these players come from out of state, and they come to Oregon because it's kind of a place where you can lock in. Eugene's a great place, but there isn't a lot going on in Eugene compared to a city like Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in Los Angeles. You can get distracted a lot. Whereas a lot of players that come to Oregon, they like coming to Oregon because they can just kind of focus on football. Like football is the biggest deal in town in Eugene and Springfield, and so. These players can kind of just focus on their game and focus on the craft and just kind of worry about getting to that next step, which is the NFL.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating with USC coming into town. I think we kind of talk about them all year with the recruiting, and hey, these teams are always doing a battle. So Dan Lanning talked about the recruiting this weekend and the opportunity that having USC in town gives them.
Recruiting's the lifeblood of our program, and for us here, it's always been about quality over quantity, about what kind of players do we want to sign, the guys that are going to fit our mold. And then always looking kind of big picture down the road. What's that look like for your team? What's going to be available for your team postseason as you're trying to develop that? But we have a staff that's dedicated to that, evaluating that at all times. And always number one for us will be able to be, keeping the players that we have on our current roster as well as the additions that, we can add in the future. But weekends like this with the distractions, with all the pieces that are going on, that can be huge weekends for you in recruiting. And we've been able to live off of moments like that here in the past, and certainly want to be able to take advantage of it this weekend.
And also kind of under the radar, I think, Knight, is that it's senior day as well. I mean, it's kind of I think being swept under the rug a little bit because it's such a big game, but this is the last time that a lot of these seniors are going to be seeing Autzen Stadium.
Well, you never know because there is a situation
in the regular season.
In the regular season, yes, because there is a situation where Oregon hosts a playoff game and maybe they get to come back to Autzen Stadium for one more time. But I think you're 100% right. Like. I hadn't even thought that it is senior day because I'm just so focused on the USC game and trying to take care of business there and then take care of business against Washington and then see where the cards fall. But 100%, you're right. It's a big recruiting weekend. It always is against USC. Dan Lanning's done a great job just recruiting Southern California, but also everywhere. It's not only just Southern California, and that's kind of something that gets lost. Like Lincoln Riley, sure, he wants to recruit Southern California better. USC, that's traditionally been where they've succeeded the most is when they recruit Southern California well. But Lincoln Riley, he's just like Dan Lanning. Like he goes national. Like USC has the resources to go everywhere in the country and get guys to commit to their school. And so Dan Lanning sees this as an opportunity not only to recruit in Southern California, but also across the country because Oregon's recruiting everywhere just the same way that USC is.
Yeah, we could thank Willie Taggart for that formula, and he kind of figured out first that you could recruit nationally at Oregon, and I think Mario Cristobal kind of continued that. Dan Lanning has certainly been able to continue that as well. But Dan Lanning also talks about these seniors and what they've meant to this team.
Yeah, I'm forever grateful for those guys for what they've contributed, and to think this could be the last time they get to play on this field. I probably haven't hit it enough, this week for what those guys mean to us and the work that they've put in. I know that we talk about player-led team. It's really driven by those guys, right, and their focus and really the intensity that they bring and the standard that they hold our program to. So really grateful for every one of those guys.
And he didn't have a ton to say about the actual USC game today, but one of the guys he brought up was the guy that you brought up to Ryan just a minute ago, Kai Lemon. He's a really good player, and Dan Lanning had a lot to say about him.
Yeah, he's a tough matchup. I've spoke on it already how good of a wideout he is, and the fact that they move him around certainly makes it a challenge. It's hard. You've seen some teams try to match up to him, and that can be difficult in certain calls. It also can be an indicator at times, right, if you always match up a certain way of what kind of defense you might be playing. So got to be aware of where he's at all times and be able to handle those adjustments.
Kai Lemon is special, man. Like, just looking at the numbers right now, I saw that he was over 1,000 yards. But when you break it down, this past weekend against Iowa, was his 5th 100-yard receiving game, and he has 4 receiving games over 150 yards this season. Like, that is legit stuff. 8 touchdowns this season. He's going to be a problem for Oregon. And like Ryan was talking about a little bit earlier, but you also have Jacoby Lane on the other side.
Right.
Like, you have a couple of really big targets for USC, and then you kind of get the tight ends involved as well. I think that Lake McCree's done a really good job in their passing game as well. And so USC is going to be a tough matchup. Jaden Mayava, he can move in the pocket quite a bit. It's going to be tough offensively to try to stop USC. And Mekhi Lemon, he's certainly a difference maker. He's maybe the best wide receiver in the country right now. You could certainly make the case that he should be the Blitnikoff winner.
And honestly, Jaden Mayava might be one of the best quarterbacks. He's being kind of a little bit underrated right now. Obviously, USC's offense has been very, very good, 38 points per game. And I just feel like they're one of those teams, and I've talked about this on this program. I feel like they can play with anybody, and they'll play down to other teams as well. Like, they're that team because they're so good on offense. They can score at will, but their defense, it's a Big 12 defense sometimes, if that makes sense. It's a Lincoln Riley defense from the Big 12.
And no doubt. And, it's interesting because, year one under Lincoln Riley, their defense was so bad. Like, that year with Caleb Williams, they were really, really struggling defensively. And they've certainly picked it up a little bit defensively. D'Anton Lynn's done a really good job on the defensive side coming over from UCLA over the past few seasons. But like Ryan was talking about, there's still some holes in that run defense that has prevented USC from winning games, like the Notre Dame game. That's sort of the area where Oregon's going to have to exploit them. They're going to have to run the football well. That's what Oregon didn't do well against Indiana. That's a large reason why they lost that game against the Hoosiers. And honestly, just looking at what USC has given up on the ground and what Oregon has done on the ground, that certainly is the area where Oregon should be looking to exploit that.
No, it certainly should be. I mean, this ground attack, you have 3 running backs that are averaging over 7 yards a carry. I would certainly expect Oregon to go all out in terms of running the ball because, I mean, are they the best running team in the country?
You could certainly make the case. They're the deepest running team, I would say. I mean, just looking at how many running backs have contributed. I think it's also funny because you think about USC and Oregon and the history of these two programs since 2000. But, USC around 2004, 2005, Lendell White and Reggie Bush, it was thunder and lightning. And Oregon has thunder and lightning right now with D.R. Hill and Jordan Davison, the 2 freshmen. That's what Will Stein's been calling them. And so not only has Oregon kind of taken the recruiting from USC, but they've also taken that swagger and that like namesake, the nicknames and everything as well. And so, you could certainly make the case that Oregon in this running back group is the deepest. And it's so funny because it's like, Noah Whittington is still making big plays for the Ducks. And Jaden Lamar's been injured for several weeks. And, he was having some moments at the beginning of the season. There's so many guys that can contribute offensively.
Yeah, and of course, Mekhi Hughes doesn't even stick on the team because he's basically turned into their 5th string running back and kind of understandable. What's your lean on this game? I mean, it's obviously a huge game. USC's been pretty good this season. They have a couple losses, obviously, but 2 ranked teams. But game against Iowa last week, I think they were pretty impressive, although there was a couple calls that could have gone either way in that one. But what's your lean on this game?
I think that I'm pretty set that Oregon should win this game. Like, I feel like I have the same confidence in Oregon winning this game that I had going into the Indiana game. Now, I could be surprised. Like, USC may show up offensively and maybe defensively. Maybe they stop Oregon on the ground because I think that is going to be the big difference maker is if USC is able to stop Oregon, then I think they will be successful. But ultimately, I am a little bit worried in the secondary. USC has those targets. I feel like Oregon over the past few weeks, yes, the secondary has performed well, but it's also they haven't necessarily played a dynamic quarterback at the same time.
Statistically, they're one of the best teams in the country. And I'm not saying that they're not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's they played Wisconsin. They played Iowa. I mean, they played teams that don't want to throw the ball.
Yeah, 100%. They played Minnesota last week. Drake Lindsey's not going to blow you away offensively with his arm.
They protected them all game long.
Yeah, and the week before that, they played Rutgers. So, the last 4 weeks, they haven't played a dynamic quarterback. The best quarterback they've played is Fernando Mendoza, and he had a pretty good game against Oregon. So, at this point, I feel like the secondary's kind of been untested, and now you have a couple of dynamic playmakers that USC has offensively. I'm a little worried about that. I think I'm more worried about the defense performing than the offense. I think that Oregon's going to score points. I'm just worried that Oregon's maybe not going to be able to stop USC's offense.
Yeah, no, I think certainly a high-scoring game will favor USC. We'll have to see what happens there on Saturday. But I want to talk about the college football rankings. I've been kind of hyping this up all week. I've been waiting for these rankings, and I've been telling our listeners tonight that I've been kind of getting pre-annoyed. I was ready to be annoyed. I was upset about what was going to happen, and it didn't even happen yet. And the rankings come out, and honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. Ohio State number 1, Indiana sticks at number 2, Texas A&M number 3, Georgia number 4, Texas Tech number 5, and Ole Miss number 6. That was all pretty much, I think, what we expected. And then this pod came. Oregon number 7, Oklahoma number 8, Notre Dame number 9, 10 Alabama, then BYU and Utah at 11 and 12 with the projected ACC champion, maybe now Miami at number 13. So I just start with this. Were you surprised with these rankings and the way they came out? Because I certainly was.
I was not. I really thought that Oregon was going to move up one spot to number 7. I know that you thought that Oklahoma might be ahead of Oregon. Honestly, I thought, if anything, Alabama would still be ahead of them. Maybe
I thought they might stick both, quite honestly.
Oregon would drop down a spot.
Yes.
But I feel like you can't drop them down at that point as well. And the other thing, too, is that I think that everything's going to shake itself out. If they would have put Oregon behind Oklahoma and Alabama, if Oregon wins against USC, they'll probably jump Oklahoma and Alabama in that situation. So I think everything's going to shake itself out. Honestly, I was probably more surprised that USC jumped into the top 15. I understand they won against Iowa, but still they dropped into the top 15. And maybe that's just to prop up College Game Day a little bit, which is another thing that we didn't even talk about. It is Senior Day, but also College Game Day is coming to Eugene as well, and there's all that excitement about that. Maybe a little bit less excitement about this College Game Day because there was already College Game Day earlier this season.
There's that fun stat that I saw, though, that I think, and I don't know if this is 100% correct, but that this is the 13th time that Eugene and the Ducks have had a game day since USC has hosted a game day.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, because USC hasn't necessarily been the most successful program over the past 15 years. And when they have had College Game Day, it's been on the road. I think about that Washington versus USC College Game Day. I was 2016 now? 2017? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, but at the end of the day, USC hasn't necessarily been a top-ranked team.
They haven't deserved it, I think.
Yeah, they haven't deserved College Game Day.
Right. And this slate, obviously, this week isn't super great. I mean, this is very clearly, I think, the biggest game, probably the one with the most on the line in terms of the playoff. But I certainly was surprised with the way they did it. Very clearly, they valued losses or the lack of losses. The top 3 teams are undefeated. The next 3-4 teams have only 1 loss, including Oregon. They're below the other teams with maybe the strength of schedule. Which, what are your thoughts on that? Because we've kind of debated all year long about the whole Penn State game and is that valuable? Is it not valuable? I've been hearing some people on ESPN talk about it you only beat them by 7 in overtime on the road, and some people still view it as a top 5 victory. So where do you stand?
For me, I still think it's a big win. At the end of the day, Penn State was a different team that week. I think that game was a make or break game for Penn State. There's a reason why that after that game, the wheels kind of fell off, and 3 weeks later, James Franklin was fired. I don't think
Completely agree.
I think if Oregon loses that game and Penn State wins that game, even if Penn State some reason lost to UCLA and Northwestern, I don't think they do. If they beat Oregon, I think they'd be riding that momentum. James Franklin still probably would be the head coach at Penn State. And honestly, I think if you're Penn State in this situation, you probably wish you had James Franklin still with the way that this coaching carousel has gone. But I find it interesting, too, talking about the value of losses. I would be really curious to see what would have happened to Texas A&M if they would have lost this week against South Carolina. Because right now, they're 10-0. But every single one of their wins has been against teams in the bottom half of the SEC. Right. So would they have dropped Texas A&M outside of the top 12? How far down would Texas A&M have gone if they want to value the losses more than you value the wins? To me, still, Indiana's a great win. For Indiana beating Oregon is a great win for them. I think it's a great loss. If you're going to have a loss, might as well lose to the number 2 team in the country.
Who's undefeated. Yeah.
Exactly. And Oregon's taking care of business. Sure, they didn't have a huge offensive game against Wisconsin, but at the end of the day, it was a torrential downpour.
100%.
And they had to go on the road to Iowa in a tough environment in a downpour and beat Iowa in the most Iowa game possible. So, Oregon, I feel is tested. They're just not respecting the Big Ten as much. I think that's the big difference is last year it felt like the depth of the Big Ten was a lot better. Like, you had Illinois, who was like a very good competitive Big Ten team. Indiana kind of had their rise towards the end of the year. They get into the college football playoff. This year, it's like Ohio State, Indiana, everybody else, it feels like 100%. They're talking about.
Yeah, and Oregon sort of in there, but it's hard to say. And you can't put them in the top three. We do Big Ten power rankings on Thursdays every week, and it's been it's been Ohio State, Indiana, and then Oregon for since the Indiana game, basically. Yeah. And, it also goes to show about the schedule for the Big Ten and the problems that it has. Yeah. I mean, it really says a lot that Ohio State, quite honestly, I'm not convinced Ohio State's amazing. I mean, they played Texas, but I've been on record saying I don't think Texas is that good.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll say this. I think Ohio State is the best team probably in the nation, I would guess. But they also haven't really played anybody to prove it. And so I think it'd be interesting to see this Michigan game, obviously, is going to be huge for them coming up. I'm not convinced that they're going to be, I'm not saying they're not battle-tested, but they've lost it 4 years in a row. We thought they were going to win it last year. So we'll see what happens with going that.
Well, and that's another thing, too, is that, there's been talks. I think the Big Ten, it was the other day, they were the ones that were talking about expanding the playoff to 24 teams.
Oh, my gosh.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Please don't.
Exactly. And the thing is that these conferences are so big now. You're not playing everybody in the conference. So everybody's schedule is so different. It's so imbalanced now. Yeah. And if you expand the playoff to 24 teams, then you're probably going to have to reduce the regular season to make room for all those playoff postseason games. And then the schedule gets diluted even more. So then you're not even sure who are the good teams and who are not the good teams in those situations. Ohio State, they beat Penn State after all of this stuff had happened. They beat Illinois.
No, they've been dominating teams. They beat Washington,
they beat Washington.
Should be a ranked team, except for they lost to Wisconsin.
That was crazy. But also, that was a snowstorm.
Absolutely.
That's where the Big Ten
turns
gets
out those factors matter.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Poor weather can really deter your performance.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Crazy.
A couple of minutes left here on the Danny and Justin radio program. Bald-Faced Truth on after us. We want to talk about the matchups here in the bracket and then maybe get to a couple minutes of the Blazers here. First round, Tulane and Texas Tech, Notre Dame and Oklahoma, Miami and Ole Miss, and then Alabama. We'd be traveling to Autzen Stadium. That would be fun.
Would that be the biggest game in Autzen Stadium history?
Ooh. It could be. It very well could be.
You could make the argument.
You could make the argument.
There's certainly been some big games at Autzen Stadium. They've never hosted a playoff game. That's never been an option. But not only would it be hosting a playoff game, but it'd be hosting a playoff game against Bama. Against Kalen DeBoer, who Dan Lanning lost a couple of times to in year number one.
Has he beaten Kalen DeBoer? I think he's 0-3.
He's 0-3.
The first year in Autzen.
First year in Autzen, and then 2 years. Year two. You're right. It was year two. He lost twice.
Yep.
The game up in Washington where they missed the field goal, and then the Pac-12 championship game.
So people have kind of talked about, Oregon has a Washington problem. Danny Lanning has a Washington problem. I don't know. He might have a Kalen DeBoer problem as much as anything. Want to touch on the Blazers here? I know I wanted to get them a little bit more. Last night they fall to the Suns, kind of a little bit surprising there. Suns have been kind of resurgent, but talking to you before this program, you're kind of confident for them against my Chicago Bulls tonight.
I'm not as confident. You're more confident in the Blazers. To me, I feel like the Blazers right now are just trying to tread water, try to get healthy, all right? There's just been so many injuries for this Blazers team. A good sign at the end of the first half last night against the Suns. They fought really hard, made it competitive, 3-point game at the half, but the wheels kind of fell off. They lost a lot of momentum, shot just 22.7% from the field and then 20% from three-point in the third quarter. So definitely it's going to be one of those things that if the Blazers are going to have to win tonight, they're going to have to try to sustain it for 4 quarters. And Chicago, they have a lot of depth. So honestly, I feel like the Bulls with their depth is a good thing for them. Vegas
also likes the Bulls tonight. They are a 4.5-point favorite right now. But as I said, I think that the Blazers, they got good defense, and I think that Josh Giddey, he's a little bit banged up right now. He came back, had a nice game, but I think that he's one of those guys where it's all kind of on him to kind of make it go. So, Unite, been fun, man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Been great getting to talk ball with you again.
No, it's been fun, and we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Oh, 100%. Hopefully not 3 more years.
No, hopefully not 3 more years. So I think that's all the time we've got for today. For Knight Jarecki and I, enjoy the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano on next. Danny will be back tomorrow. We'll have Landon Tengwall with us to talk some Oregon football. Put a smile on your face and someone else's face because they deserve it, and so do you. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.